injury updates on Matt Martin, Semyon Varlamov, Samuel Bolduc, and more, plus a closer look at the likely roster spots that are open for grabs right now and who's going to get them. All that, plus a preview of tonight's game at The Rock against the Devils, coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody. Gil Martin here at Locked On Islanders. So glad you could be with us today as we talk all things New York Islanders. Busy show, lots of injury updates as Barry Trotz touched on some of these players' situations at practice on Wednesday. We've got the latest, including the fact that it's getting pretty darn close to the time when we know who's going to be the starting opening night in Carolina. We've got a preview of tonight's game in New Jersey against the Devils, and we're going to start zeroing in on some of those final roster spots. We've pretty much known who's going to be the starting 6 defensemen and who's going to be the starting 12 forwards, but we're getting closer now to figuring out who some of the backups are going to be. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Islanders your listen every day. Remember, we are free and available on all platforms. If there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, a topic that you'd like us to discuss, feel free to send us an email. The email address, as always, lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from in the email, we are happy to mention you on the show when we talk about whatever it is that's on your mind. You could also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on Twitter at Ice Wars, NYR versus NYI, or NYR vs NYI. We'll keep you up to date on all the latest news, notes, and happenings concerning New York Islanders. So, injury updates. Let's start there. Barry Trotz, after practice on Wednesday, indicating that Semyon Varlamov not going away in tonight's game against the Devils, almost certainly not going to play in the final preseason game against the Rangers coming up Saturday. And he admitted we're getting pretty darn close to time when Semyon Varlamov is almost certainly not going to be ready for opening day, which is coming up a week from today, October 14th, against the Carolina Hurricanes down in Raleigh. So odds are right now that Sorokin is the opening night goaltender for the New York Islanders. It's not official yet, but the longer Semyon Varlamov goes without taking ice, without playing, the more likely it is that Sorokin is the opening night starter and that Corey Schneider is the backup. And really, that's what it looks like is going to be the case. So the priority, according to Barry Trotz, is to give Sorokin enough work between now and opening night so that he's ready to go, so that he is sharp and ready. And then after that, it's going to be Corey Schneider who will get the rest of the work, barring a very miraculous recovery by Semyon Varlamov. So that's how it looks right now for New York Islanders. And again, it's where we're running out of time. So, yeah, there's that. Samuel Bolduc, by the way, back skating, and it remains to be seen, whether he'll see action in either of the remaining 2 preseason games. But good that Bolduc is out there and ready to do more. Odds of him making the roster this year, not very strong at all, but it would probably be beneficial to his development to see him out there at least in one of the final two preseason games. But that'll depend on what Barry Trotz wants and how. Matt Martin, meanwhile, still skate ready for contact drills. So Matty Martz's situation heading as we get closer and closer to the season opener, also still up in the air. So, we have to see whether Matt Martin is ready. But look, when push comes, it's going to be both forwards who, are in the opening night roster, and then we're looking at those backup spots, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later on in the show. So the Islanders did make some moves yesterday. 10 players placed on waivers, and they include Cole Bardreau, Timashov, Andreoff, Austin Zarnik, and Otto Koivula. Those were the forwards who were waived. On defense, Paul Ledoux, Grant Hutton, Mitch Vandesample, and Parker Wotherspoon were also waived, and goalie Ken Appleby put out on waivers as well. Of all of those players, the most likely to be someone in another team may be looking to pick up is Koivula. Koivula, only 23 years old. He's only played a total of 12 NHL games over the last 2 years, which may hold him back a little bit. The other player who I sort of thought was interesting was Hutton being waived. Grant Hutton, if only because as a right-handed defenseman, the Islanders probably, they don't have a lot of right-handed depth there. So I think they necessarily want to lose him, even if the top three right-handed defensemen are more or less set on the opening night roster. So we're getting closer. 10 players not going to make the team. That much is for sure. And look, we know that Dmytro Timashov, Otto Koivula, Andrei Andreoff, Cole Bardreau, all of them, weren't going to make this team right now out of training camp. And it just becomes a question of making sure that they can indeed start the season in Bridgeport. So we are going to take a look at some of the final roster spots, who is looking more available, who is not. Odds are tonight when the Islanders take on the Devils at the Rock in Newark, we're going to see Ilya Sorokin in goal. And then it becomes a question of whether or not Schneider gets a period or a half a game, or whether they say to Ilya Sorokin, let me see what you got. Are you ready to go a complete 60 minutes in this game, and let him go all the way they let Schneider go all the way Tuesday night again. So some coaching decisions still have to be made by Barry Trotz, who's going to see some action in the final two preseason games. But, so far, Islander fans have to be very pleased with a 3-0-1. This team has been playing. We have a lot more to discuss on the Locked On Islanders podcast. We've got our Islanders birthday of the day. And of course, we're going to take a look at the battle for those final roster spots. Really a question of who's going to be the 7th and 8th defenseman and who's going to be the 13th and 14th forwards. But injuries will play a role, and we'll discuss all of that, who the favorites are, and how it's looking when we come back on the Locked On Islanders podcast. This episode is brought to you by your friends at BetOnline. We're back and better than ever, and all eyes are on the grid. Teams are back for another football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. With a new updated site and interface and even more odds, props, and contests, BetOnline continues to be the number one source for everything football. Head to the website or use your mobile device today to sign up and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Don't forget to use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive that bonus, free money, to use at BetOnline. From football, basketball, boxing, hockey, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. Today's episode is also brought to you by Get Upside. Hey, Islanders fans, this is Gil Martin with an incredible app everyone who buys gas needs to know about, Get Upside. My listeners are making up to 25 cents for every gallon of gas every time they fill up. Just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store on Play right now. Use the promo code HOCKEY and get a bonus 25 cents per gallon on your first fill up. That's up to 50 cents cash back per gallon. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. Download the app for free and use promo code HOCKEY to get up to 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. Some people drive a lot are making as much as $200 to $300 a month in cash back, and there's no catch. The cash back gets added right to your account. You can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use the promo code HOCKEY to get up to 50 cents a gallon cash back on your first tank. That's promo code HOCKEY for up to 50 cents a gallon back at Get Upside. And once again, we want to thank everyone for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Let's take a look now at some of the final roster decisions that the Islanders have to make. And again, we're still unsure about Semyon Varlamov and whether he'll be ready, but Ilya Sorokin ready to go, and Corey Schneider would be the backup if Varlamov starts the season on the injured list. Meanwhile, you look at the defensive depth situation. We've talked a lot about Erik Gustafsson. And look, he was on the power play, had 2 assists. Here's what Barry Trotz had to say about him, and he's had 4 assists so far in the preseason games he's played in. He basically said he's been pretty good. And right now, if the preseason ended, I would say that Gustafsson probably going to get a contract offer. He's here on a PTO, a tryout. And then I think Sebastian Aho, who Trotz has been saying good things about his game, those are probably the leaders as of now for that 7th and 8th defense spot. Thomas Hickey's still in the mix, but I think Hickey's salary situation would hamper him. And then, look, Robin Salo, who we've talked about, 22 years old, probably going to open up the season in Bridgeport, mostly because he doesn't need waivers. And if he doesn't need waivers to be sent up and down, and he's not with the big club, it doesn't make sense to have a young player like Salo down on the taxi squad or as a black ace as the 7th or 8th defenseman. You need a young kid like Salo who is adjusting to life in North America to really play every day. And he's not going to do that if it's with the Islanders. Here's what Barry Trotz said about Salo. He turned out to be a good prospect. He has a lot of those real little things that Pelly does, having a really good stick, got that ability to get himself around the puck and make good plays with it. Happy with the overalls in his game. It's harder to tell on film, the big ice in Europe, not a lot of play at the net, but I've been impressed with him. So to me, Robin Salo, not going to start the season on the Islanders roster, but very, very likely that he does start the season in Bridgeport. And then if he really impresses in Bridgeport, I could see him being a mid-season call-up. Or if there's injuries, I could see him being one of the first players called up. I think he's made a very good first impression, and that this kid, probably 1 year away from being a top 6 defenseman on the Islanders, but I think he's made a great first impression, and that is definitely important. Now, turning our attention to the reserve forwards. First of all, obviously, Matt Martin we still don't know whether he'll be healthy enough to go opening night. I think that if it's at all, he'll give it a go. But, well, the way Barry Trotz has talked about it, you're looking at two reserve forwards, your 13th and 14th forward. And Trotz has sort of said he wants one guy who will be primary backup for the top six forwards and one guy who will be the primary backup for the bottom six. For the top six, I think Kiefer Bellows and Richard Panik are probably the top two candidates, while Panik, Ross Johnston, Michael Del Cole, and Uncle Leo are the leading candidates for the bottom six. Uncle Leo and Panik probably the most ready to fill in, but also you've got cap issues with them. They may be cap casualties. Now, we all know how much Barry Trotz likes and trusts Leo Komarov, and they know what he adds, but clearly Uncle Leo, more of a bottom six backup. Ross Johnston, again, his game a bit limited, but he showed a lot, I think, in the preseason that he's not just a one-dimensional guy. Look, he's not even a 10-goal scorer in this league, even if he plays 82 games. But Ross Johnston will give you a lot of effort, physicality, and he's certainly capable of helping this team in a pinch. So Kiefer Bellows, again, it becomes a question of how many more times can they send him back to the minors? I don't think he can accomplish a lot down there, and yet maybe it benefits him more to play every day in Bridgeport than it would to play, let's say, 20 games or so all year and be a black ace for most of the season sitting in the press box for the Islanders. Del Cole, I don't think has really shown a lot. He's been average, let's say, in training camp and in the preseason, but didn't do anything to really distinguish himself. So, to me, Panik, probably a likely candidate to make it because he's one of those guys who could fit in anywhere on the top four lines if you need him. Johnston and Komarov are bottom six guys. Del Cole has a certain amount of versatility, but hasn't really showed up. Anatoly Golashov hasn't really made a statement in training camp or in preseason. He's probably heading to Bridgeport, but you know what? He's 26 years old, and he has the option, if he's in Bridgeport for too long, to opt out and head back to Russia. So not sure what the Islanders are going to do with him. As of right now, I think that you're looking at Uncle Leo and probably Panik to be the reserve forwards if the training camp and preseason ended today. They don't. There's still two preseason games, and we'll have to see how it all plays out. But as of right now, that's the way it's looking for the Islanders as we have 2 games left at the end of the preseason and 1 week left before the start of the 2021-22 season. We've got more to come right here on the Locked On Islanders podcast. When we return, we'll have our Islanders birthday of the day, more. So stay with us. More to come on the Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it is now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. So why endure often pointless and seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing only the brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Why choose to spend 30, 50, or even 100% more from the same parts from a chain store or a car dealership? Rock Auto family business, and they've been serving do-it-yourselfers online for over 20 years, and the prices are the same and reliably low for every customer. They have everything you could need from brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil, or even a new carpet. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your truck, right, locked on in there. How did you hear? We sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Time now for our Islanders' birthday of the day. And this one is sort of one that, to me, it comes with a tinge of regret because he was drafted high and had high expectations for, but because he plays power forward, our Islanders' birthday of the day today, you know, power forwards tend to need a little bit more time to develop than your typical forward. And the Islanders really didn't give this player enough time to develop, ended up trading him. He went on to have a halfway decent career, but during his brief time with the New York Islanders, he really did not end up accomplishing much. And the player we're talking about right now is Raffi Torres. And, you know, Torres, a lot of expectations for him, and he never ended up meeting them. And it's a shame because, unfortunately, you know, when Raffi Torres joined the New York Islanders, the team wasn't flourishing. They weren't playing great hockey, and there just wasn't a lot of patience for Raffi Torres point in time. And that ended up really Torres. We're going to go back and look at Torres' better games with the Islanders. Now, remember, he didn't play a lot with the Islanders. And we're going to take you back January 3rd, 2002, Coliseum. Islanders and going up against the Pittsburgh National All-Man, the goalie Pittsburgh, Chris Osgood for the New York Islanders, and it was the Penguins on the board first. Hank Primo is second. Tom Callis and Christoph Oliwa, 8 Penguins up early, 1-0. But the Islanders, Darius Kasparaitis off for hooking. Brad Isbis cashes in on the power play. His point, Sean Bates get helpers. After 20 minutes, the game is all even at 1 apiece. In the same period, Torres, Islanders birthday of the day, off for high sticking. Sean Bates comes through with a shorthanded goal, his 12th. Jason Blake, the only Islanders go up 2-1. Then Jason Blake scores a little more rather than 3 minutes later, his 5th from Oleg Kavacha and Dave Scatchard at 16. After 40 minutes, it's Islanders 3 and the Penguins 1. Then his 21st is our Islanders' birthday of the day, and Max Lindgren at 6:02. That made it 4-1 Islanders. A late goal, a power play goal with Max Lindgren off for tripping. Alexei Kovalev scores for the Penguins, his 13th from Robert Lang and Oliwa at 12:35. Out the and a 4-2 victory. He's first. NHL assist Sean Bates and Blake, each with a goal and an assist to pace the Islanders assist a +1, 4 penalty minutes, and 1 shot on goal in just 6 minutes and 21 seconds of ice time. Chris Osgood, 18 saves to earn the win. Islanders out shooting the Penguins in this one, 35-14. So, again, we wish to Raffi Torres, Islanders' birthday of the day. And again, one of those guys who you just sort of would have gotten more of a chance to get things done. Oh, if I made it, by the way, Raffi Torres, his birthday coming on Phil B, the big pro, 40 years old, entry draft by the. I went on season there back 20 goals in Columbus, Edmonton, over Phoenix, San Jose. End up with 635 NHL games, 136, 260 points, and had a halfway decent career when all was done, but never really developed much with the Islanders. Spent parts of seasons with the Islanders, 31 games, 6 assists, and Islanders uniform. Again, how do you have a little more patience when they might hold on to a player? On tomorrow's show, we will have key takeaways from tonight's game in Newark against the Devils. Plus, we will look ahead to the final preseason game and have our thoughts again about roster situation and injury updates and a whole lot more concerning your New York Islanders. Thanks for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Host Scott Cullen leans on his decades fantasy hockey insight and experience every day to help you be the expert of your fantasy league. It's free and available on all platforms. That's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. Of course, let's go Islanders.